Everyone, come on in, grab a seat. Welcome to Lunch Without Lunch in Calgary. Thank you everyone for joining us in person, and thank you everyone for joining us online. If you're new to Rainforest Lunch Without Lunch, raise your hand in person. Yeah, awesome, welcome. If you're new online, drop an emoji on the screen, introduce yourself in the chat. If you want to follow along with us on social media, you can find us at Rainforest AB. Before we get started, I just want to start with the land acknowledgement. So in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation, Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. If you are online and coming from somewhere else in the province, in the country, or the world, please share a land acknowledgement in the chat. And of course, if you are interested in sharing a land acknowledgement at the beginning of Lunch Without Lunch, or if you're looking to share a reconciliation, please message me or Bridget. We would love to have that discussion. And yeah.
What does it take to realize an idea, or for a seed to sprout? At Rainforest Alberta, we know the answer is rooted in trust. Traditionally, Albertans have cultivated their ideas in established systems. Inputs that don't fit these systems are weeded out. Opportunities for growth are missed. But now, Albertans want a dynamic landscape that can evolve organically, like a rainforest. At Rainforest Alberta, we believe a culture of trust is the fertile soil where ideas grow. Our budding innovation ecosystem is a network of relationships pulling each other up as they push forward in their own field. Trust breaks down barriers. An open, inclusive network increases collaborative innovation. Successful breakthroughs inspire new ideas. A cycle begins. Rainforest Alberta is a movement to amplify trust by cultivating honesty, inclusion, and accountability. How? Our social contract holds us accountable to demonstrate trust across the province. We meet to have honest conversations around collaboration. This leads to more inclusive spaces for everyone to fearlessly build new ideas together. By raising the standard of trust, Alberta's ideas, talent, and resources can be evergreen. Visit rainforestab.ca to sign the social contract and start growing together.
I also realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm Amber, community storyteller at Rainforest Alberta here in Calgary. And we have Bridget Legault, who's the community manager in Calgary. She's not here today, but you'll also see her around the rainforest. So I love that video. It does a quick explanation of what Rainforest Alberta is. So Rainforest Alberta, we're a community of innovators, dreamers, doers, entrepreneurs, founders, investors, students, kind of anyone you can think of who are working to make an inclusive, diversified, building trust, community and province. And we do that through a bunch of different things, through collisions, connections, and driving initiatives forward. One of those initiatives is our scorecard assessment. We release this every year to measure the ecosystem in Calgary and also in Edmonton. So we use 6 pillars to measure our conversations and actions. The 6 pillars are culture, leaders, resources, engaged activities, policy and infrastructure, and role model. And culture is weighted at 30%. It's the one that we most heavily focus on at Rainforest. So building that culture of trust and building a culture of trust. So that social contract that the video mentioned, it is 10 values that we live, work, and play by. It's being a good human being. If you scan that QR code, you'll be able to sign the social contract and follow those contract values. And we're really committed to living by them. They help us grow as individuals and are a base for connecting to each other and building new ideas. We have a digital platform and a community. So if you're curious about anything happening in tech or innovation, or you're looking for someone to work with, or you have a question about investing, you have a question about basically anything you can think of. Our digital community is a great app to ask that question, and you'll be matched to someone that can automatically answer that question through AI. We also have a anonymity feature, so you can ask that question without people knowing who you are, which just creates an environment of psychological safety. So if you scan that QR code, you'll be able to join our community as well. And I'll also throw it in the chat online as well. We also just had our first community onboarding session yesterday. And so we have another one coming up on June 21st. And this is a great way to get to know what's happening at Rainforest, how you can get involved, what we're all about, get to know the people in the community. I would really encourage anyone that's curious to know more about Rainforest to come and join us at one of these sessions. And with that, I am done the introduction, and I want to pass it on to Zach Novak of Careers in Technology and Innovation, who's going to introduce our amazing speaker today, all the way from Vancouver. And yes, she is in person. So here's Zach.
Oh, great. I think you just need this. I'm going to be really quick. I'm Zach, the founder of Careers in Technology and Innovation. The story of how I met Jen is just a story of, community coming together. I was going to Vancouver to learn more about the Vancouver tech ecosystem, be inspired by it. And I was asking friends, who should I meet? And Jen was one of the people that our friend Song had offered to meet. And we had a great conversation. Jen has pivoted her career into tech, into Demonware, which is an incredible company that she'll talk about, and has moved from receptionist to senior technical project manager. And we were having a conversation around mentorship. And at Demonware, Jen has led the implementation of a mentorship program at that company that's being expanded to other parts of her organization, and has actually spoken on this topic, I believe, in Washington at a conference. So I was like, well, you should come and talk to us. And then I thought there'd be no better format than to partner with the Rainforest and get us all together to chat. So please give me a warm round of applause for Jen.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for those of you who are attending remotely. It's really actually awesome to be back in Calgary because I grew up here. I went to school here, and it's really cool to see the tech scene growing and changing, and that the city isn't just about oil anymore. I personally am really happy to see that. So a little bit about me. The plan for today, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on myself. I'm going to talk about my experience with mentorship, which kind of led me to kick off the program. We're going to break down a little bit of the basics of what it even means to be in a mentorship partnership. And then I'm going to talk about how I kicked off my program and how you might do the same. So this is me right now. I'm a senior technical project manager at Demonware. I actually live in Squamish, so north of Vancouver. I work remotely from there. If you've never been to Squamish, it's an absolutely beautiful town. If you are coming to Squamish, please drop me a line. I'm happy to show you local breweries or climbing crags or whatever you like. And I love gaming. That was how I got into the job I am at today. So I work at a company called Demonware. You may have never heard of Demonware. You've probably heard of Activision Blizzard. Yeah. So we work on such games as Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and the big one, which is Call of Duty. And I'm pretty sure most of you in this room have heard of Call of Duty. The only person I've ever mentioned the words Call of Duty to that did not know what I was talking about, I think, is my mother. So I'm working on her. That's the main game that I work to support. But Crash is actually my favorite. My favorite game we've worked on so far is the Crash Team Racing remake. And Crash is going to help me out with my slides to make them a little less boring as we go along. One thing you may not know about the gaming industry is the gaming industry actually is bigger than Hollywood and the music industry combined. Demonware and Call of Duty, we have 1 billion registered players. And when a Call of Duty game launches, we go from 0 people playing our games to millions of people playing our games in under an hour. So the services that we build are extremely high scale. They have to be very, very low latency. And if a game launch doesn't go well, the players are very vocal about it. So that's what we do at Demonware. We do the back-end services, matchmaking services, player profiles, in-game currency, in-game marketplaces, the achievements you get when you get 10 headshots in a game. That's all of the stuff that my teams work on. So how has mentorship made a difference in my life? So going way back, I actually went to university at the U of C here for civil engineering. I did not complete my engineering degree. This is not a tale about me becoming an engineer. I actually left in my third year. I got quite sick, and so I decided to take some time off. And during that year off that I took, I got in a really bad car accident. And I was in constant pain. I couldn't lift my right arm past about here for a while. And I actually started doing yoga. Yoga was the one thing that actually helped it. And because of that, I got really excited about yoga. And I decided to become a yoga teacher. So as part of my yoga teacher training, at the end of it, they had an optional mentorship where you could pair with a senior yoga teacher. And you would do two things. You would go to their classes and then talk about how they taught and kind of discuss and break things down. They would come to your classes and give you feedback on your teaching. And then you would also talk about how to actually be a yoga teacher as a business, how to make that viable. And that was something that if you don't know any yoga teachers, you're generally like a subcontractor. You get paid per class, and living off of that can be challenging, particularly at first. So having somebody more experienced show me the way was really impactful in getting me to a place where that was my full-time job. That's what I did for 10 years. And I loved it. I worked at actually lots of studios around the city here. I worked with some of the high schools in the city running programs. I worked with some of our Olympic teams, teaching them yoga, and I really enjoyed it. But at a certain point, I decided that I wasn't necessarily growing anymore, and I wanted to do something different, maybe something a little bit more technical. I mean, I did go to school for engineering, so I was interested in maybe using some of my brain power a little bit more, and I didn't really know where to start. So I got a job as a receptionist at Demonware. This is me. This is about a month after I started Halloween 7 years ago. And they literally just hired me to answer the phones and the door. I think that was the bullet point list of my responsibilities. And I very quickly got bored. And I started looking for other things to do. And I began organizing things around the office. And my manager at one point, she said, I think you'd actually make a really good project manager. Have you thought about doing that? And I took this job in the interest of paying my bills while I figured out what I wanted to do and going back to school. So that kind of started something going in my brain. And I wound up going back to school to BCIT and going through the project management program there. But even then, I didn't really know how to take that next step to actually moving into being in a more technical role or moving out of the admin role within my company. And so I fell back on what I had done teaching yoga. I thought, I need a mentor. This is how it's going now, by the way. It's going well. So I wound up reaching out to a couple of the senior PMs within my organization and just having very frank conversations with them, saying like, this is where I am right now. You're where I want to be. Can you help me get there? And I reached out to two of them. One of them, it turned out, was quite busy, but the other one got really excited. He took me under his wing and he started to help me find opportunities to take the skills that I had learned in the courses I had taken and apply them to my work. And also he pulled me into projects that he was working on. And so I could help him out when I had spare time. I actually shadowed him for a week and kind of went through all of like the normal team processes and everything, helping him out. So he was very instrumental. And it got to the point where when a junior role opened up in his department, he advocated for me, and I was basically a shoo-in for the role. So I was offered the role and I moved into our platform department. All right, so that's my background. So what does mentorship even mean? I'm going to throw a definition at you here. I don't know if you can read that. Mentoring is a dynamic, reciprocal, personal relationship in which a more experienced person or a mentor acts as a guide, role model, teacher and sponsor of a less experienced person. I have sponsor bolded there because I actually think that's one of potentially the most important things a mentor can offer is sponsorship. We'll go into that a little bit more in a moment. All right, so hopefully you can read this all. So if you are good at getting into a mentorship as a mentor, some benefits for you is they've done a lot of studies on this. They say that it leads to better career satisfaction. You get to see people learn and grow and develop. You can increase your productivity because now you have people that you can delegate to. You can get them to help you out on maybe some of the smaller tasks and give them opportunities to learn and grow. You're building your network. And often there is professional development or professional recognition for talent development. This is something my partner has actually really excelled at. He's been really good at developing leaders in his organization. And because of that, he's been promoted several times because he's a recognized developer of talent. In turn, that can often lead to rewards and bonuses. And there's a lot of studies that show that people who participate as mentors generally get paid a little bit more in the long run. Who doesn't like that? All right, so benefits for mentees. Again, you're going to get better job performance and satisfaction because you are feeling like you're learning and growing. You're feeling like you have that guidance. You're set on the right path. That means you're going to have a higher level of engagement in your work, a stronger network. Generally means lower attrition rates. You're also far more likely to mentor others. This is something I've been doing. I've been taking people under my wings at work now. And again, lots of studies show that because of that, you're going to get promoted more. You're going to have higher salaries, you're going to wind up as a higher level within your organizations. So not a lot of downsides for mentoring. And if you're part of an organization that is looking to implement some sort of a mentorship program here, this is a really good way to socialize new employees, pair them with somebody who can mentor them. I know at my company, all of our interns get a mentor within their team. And of course, we have several mentorship programs that we work with to make sure that people who are looking for guidance or mentorship are getting it. You're going to have increased organizational commitment and reduced employee turnover. So for this, what I would say to you is like, obviously, it sounds really obvious when I say it, but people don't want to stay in a job or a place where they don't feel like there's any room for them to grow or to level themselves up. So if you're running an organization and you can supply that path forward for them, that is a huge benefit to your employees. Also really good for enabling knowledge transfer. And like we've talked about earlier, really great for developing leaders within your organization. So 91%. I really like this number. This is a study that was done where they polled a whole bunch. It was like, I think it was close to like maybe several hundred female C-level, C-suite employees. And 91% of them credited mentorship as allowing them to, or giving them the ability to break through the glass ceiling and get to where they were in their job and career. So that's a huge number. And I know, I'm not sure what the tech scene is like here, but I know in video gaming, women are a huge minority. I am often the only woman in the room. It's getting better, but you know, for me, that's a signal that I absolutely need a mentor to get to where I want to be, to, you know, continue to progress my career. All right, so what do mentors do? A couple things that you can get from your mentor is going to be psychosocial support and career support. So what does that look like? On the psychosocial support front, you're going to get encouragement. You're going to go to your mentor with a problem. They're going to listen to you, hopefully. And they're going to be able to role model things. So for me, like when I went to Hamad, who was my mentor, who I've worked with now for almost 6 years, he was allowed me to see the behaviors that I needed to model, the things that I needed to demonstrate in order to get into the role of project management and to progress myself there. So that's a really important one. You know, he's since moved into product management, and that made me think about is that something that I want to be interested in? Is that a place I want to go with my career? Now, I don't actually think that's the case for me, but he still gives me really good advice. So we're not going to hold it against him. On the career support front, one of the things he did with me, so career guidance wise, we actually did like a gap analysis of my career. So we sat down and we said, okay, for this next level, you know, you exhibit these behaviors. This is the thing you're missing. You're good on this front, and you know, this is another thing that you need to demonstrate. So let's find opportunities for you to fill those gaps. So when it comes to time where the managers are discussing promotions, it's a no-brainer for you to move into that next level. And that's something, you know, maybe your manager does it. Sometimes managers work as mentors as well, but it's also a really good thing to have somebody that you don't report to giving you that honest feedback. A lot of times it's a little easier to take in and digest mentally when it's not coming from somebody who you report to, right? So on that same front, they might help tutor you or train you in skills that they don't have. And they, like Kamad did for me, he provided me practical opportunities for me to demonstrate my skills. And that's invaluable. Okay, so sponsorship, I had this bolded earlier. Sponsorship, so your mentor can publicly acknowledge your accomplishments and your work. So often, you know, you might be doing really, really good work, but if it's not highly visible, people might not notice it. But having somebody who is more senior to you that can call out the work that you're doing, call out your contributions to things that maybe you're not directly responsible for or accountable for is extremely valuable. And particularly as somebody who is a minority, so women, people of color, etc., your mentor might be able to step in situations where maybe there is overt or covert discrimination. They might be able to provide influence, or like I said, reflected power. So like when that junior PM role had opened up in the platform department, Hamad went to bat for me. He went to the director and said, she's demonstrated all these things. I believe in her, she can do it, right? So that's something a mentor can do for you. They're in the room where those discussions are happening. They can advocate for you. And the last one, they might be able to offer valuable information on job openings and promotions. This is something that I did recently with one of the people that I've been mentoring. She wasn't super happy on the team that she was on, and I was involved in a new team that was kicking off that I thought might be a little bit of interest to her. And so I meant there's opportunities here if you're looking for a change of work that you're looking on. Let me open a discussion with you with the manager with you. And she did wind up moving onto that team. I'm happy to say it's a team with 50% women on it. It doesn't happen often in video games, but I'm pretty stoked to be on that team. All right, so what do mentees do? As a mentee, you earn the right to continue asking questions by taking action on the last answer your mentor gives you. It is really, really easy to find anybody who will answer a question once for you. If you go back to that same person and ask them the same question again, as a mentor, if you ask me the same question twice, I'm going to ask you if you did anything the first time I answered your question. And I've actually had this situation come up where somebody came back to me 3 times in a row. I think we were meeting every 2 weeks. And by the 3rd time, I basically said to them, my answer is not going to change. You know, if you keep wanting, you know, you clearly want my feedback on this, but you haven't done anything about it. So as somebody who is mentoring people, I want to know that people are taking my advice seriously, they're actioning on it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. They can come back to me and we'll discuss it. We'll go into further, you know, we'll dig into it a little bit further. But I want to make sure that we're not wasting either of our time. Right. So that's part of the 2 things. Mentors want to know 2 things. They want to know that that you are having an impact on them. So I do a regular check-in with the people I mentor. Every 6 months or so, I check in and I see, how are you doing? Is this still valuable to both of us? Do you want to continue? What's your schedule looking like do we want to keep the same cadence? So they want to know that you're actioning on them, and they want to know you're making an impact in their life. All right. So how do I even get one of these mentor things? All right. I'm going to tell you to slow down. So the very, very first thing is you need to figure out where you're starting from. So if I were to ask you for directions, like how do I get to Eau Claire Market? I mean, I know where Eau Claire Market is, but if you were to tell me, those directions only make sense if I'm starting from right here, right? If I'm starting from where I live at home in Squamish, those directions do not make sense at all. So the very first thing you want to figure out is, where are you starting from? What do you like about where you are right now? What do you not like? What are the places, like what area do you want to grow in? How do you want your work-life balance to look? How do you learn? So this is possibly the most important thing, is actually figuring out what your starting point is. Take time, do some introspection. In the mentorship program that I designed, the application form is actually like it's like 3 pages. It's a little bit daunting at first. Most of it is questions like this, like, how do you learn best? What do you like best about your current job? So it's actually some introspection. And then you also figure out, how much time can you put into getting to where you want to go? That's a really important one, because if you have really lofty goals, but you're already super, super busy, maybe they're not actually rational for the time being. You might have to rethink your time frame you're doing something in. You might have to rethink who you're asking, who can help you out, that kind of a thing. Next step, where are you trying to get to? So I've used as an example here, this is Crash Team Racing back in, I want to say early 2000s, 2001 maybe. And this is the one we launched a couple years ago. So that was their starting point. That was their finish line. They obviously revamped all the graphics. They revamped some of the play styles. So where are you trying to get to? In your goal, from wherever you're starting from, what is your finish line? And I use here the SMART goals is very key. This is another part of our application, is having a SMART goal. If you've never heard of this before, please look it up online. There's lots of I feel like I hear SMART goals a lot. But to break that down, they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So if I were to say I want to be Prime Minister of Canada, that's specific. But if I say I want to be Prime Minister of Canada this year, that's probably not achievable, realistic, or timely, right? So think about what your goals are. And in particular, if you can, break them down into what you can do in the next 6 months. And I say 6 months in particular, because if you're reaching out to a mentor, if you ask somebody to be your mentor forever and ever, that might be a little bit overwhelming. But if you say, hey, can I take an hour of your time every 2 weeks for the next 6 months? A lot more people are going to be open to that, right? So be specific, make sure it's measurable, break it down into something that's achievable in a realistic timeline. Last one, find the right person to help you. So what I always suggest is look for somebody who's achieved what you're already trying to achieve, and somebody who's done it in the last 3 to 5 years. Because for me, moving into project management, my father was a project manager. My father was a project manager 30 years ago. He probably can't tell me how to move into project management in a game dev studio in 2023, right? So the world changes as things go along. The industries change. Things that companies are looking for are changing. So try to find somebody who's done it more recently, and make sure that they have time to help you. If you remember back to the start of my talk, I mentioned I approached 2 people to mentor me as project managers, and they were both really awesome. They're both still at the company I work at today. One was Andrew, the other one was Hamad. And Andrew, who is an extremely successful project manager and now lead producer for Call of Duty, he was awesome. And I know I would have learned a ton from him, but he absolutely did not have the time to devote to helping me. Hamad did. Andrew was the wrong person to mentor me. Hamad was the right person to mentor me at that point in time. So make sure that whoever you're asking is, be realistic with them, or ask them to be realistic with you. Do you have the time to dedicate to this? All right, so some ways to find a mentor within your company. If you don't know of anybody, ask a manager for a recommendation, talk to your friends within your company. If you have employee networks or resource groups, those are often good resources as well. Or if you still come up blank with that, just look up the job description in your company, org chart or something like that. And, you can always reach out to somebody, create a connection, say hi, tell them what you're interested in. And that's sometimes a good way to just make that connection. It might not be a mentorship at first, but you can always just ask if you can pick their brain once or twice about things. Outside of work, there are online mentorship programs you can sign up for. Again, feel free to ask friends for connections, or local networks or meetups like this. This is a really good place to meet people, connect within the community, maybe find somebody who's doing something that you are interested in doing as well. On top of that, conferences, events. All right, so how do they actually become my mentor? I have some good news for you, and I have some bad news. And I'm the kind of person who likes the bad news first, so you have to ask. That's the unfortunate part. Unless you are going into a structured program, the easiest way, hey, are you interested in being my mentor? The good news is the absolute worst they can say is no. So it's not as scary as it sounds. I promise it isn't. So like I said earlier, my recommendation is set a concrete time frame first. I usually say 6 months to kick things off. Make sure at that 6-month mark, you check in with your mentor if that's something that you're doing. Schedule it, like throw it in the calendar right from the get-go, schedule that check-in. Also a good thing to do, establish ground rules. Talk about confidentiality, particularly if you're in the same company as them. Make sure you're establishing ground rules for communication. I know one thing I ask my mentors to do is, you're the ones in charge, or sorry, mentees to do. You're the ones in charge. You're going to schedule the meeting. And I ask them if they can give me a heads up as to what they want feedback on a few days in advance, so I have time to think about it. And particularly if you're reaching out to somebody, you're in charge. You're the driver here. So make sure that you're doing that follow through, getting what you want out of the relationship as well. All right. So your mentorship is going great. This is what happened to me. So I moved into project management. I was talking about having Hamad mentor me. And I started to get these two questions from people quite a lot. So people were asking, hey, that's really cool. I'm interested in having mentorship, but I don't even know where to start finding a mentor. Or the second question that I would get a lot of was, I want mentorship and I know what I want to get, where I want to get to, but I don't know who can help me. So because I was hearing a lot of these two things, this was sort of the seed of the mentorship program that I wound up setting up. So what I realized was people needed some sort of a structured program to either help them figure out where to start setting goals for themselves, or help them connect to the people that could help them with the goals they already had. So this is what we did. We had a structured program. We do an intake every 6 months. Like I said, the application for it is a goal setting worksheet where we also ask people to do some introspection about themselves. We do mentor matching. So if they ask for a specific person, that's great. That's awesome. We will reach out to that person and ask if they have the capability to mentor. And then we also provide some support. We do some feedback from both the mentor and mentees. We kind of have a little bit of training and chat for mentors. And at the end of the program, we ask the mentees to check in with their mentors again. They're welcome to continue after that 6 months if it's still working for both of them, but they're not obligated to. So at Demonware, we kicked off in August 2021. We've done just our 4th intake now. And with the total of the 4 rounds of intake, we're pretty close to 300 people coming through our program as mentors and mentees total. The first round was Demonware alone. Demonware is part of Activision Central Tech and Activision Publishing. So we expanded to Central Tech and the Global Analytics Department. And we also expanded into Beanox. Beanox is, it's one of the game dev studios. They're actually located in Quebec. So they're running their separate because they have language considerations, because they wanted to make sure their mentors and mentees could have somebody fluent in their native language if they wanted to be mentored in French. So they're running their separate. But yeah, our last round was by far our biggest. And we're just getting people kind of connected and kicked off right now. So it's been really, really exciting to see happen. It's something that people at Demonware are always asking about and really interested, like when's the next intake, or like, oh, I'm not ready right now, but I've been working on this goal that I have. In 6 months, I'll be ready and I'll apply for the next one. So it's been a really awesome program that we've had so far. And that's what I've done so far. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. And I'm not sure if there is a way for people to ask questions online. But do you guys have any questions for me? Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for coming to Calgary to visit with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming to Calgary to visit us. Pete LaFontaine here. And my question is, you said I'd like to pick somebody that's kind of done it in the last 3 to 4 years. Done what?
Whatever it is that you're looking to do.
I see.
Yes. So whatever your specific goal is, like whether that's learning a skill or making a career change, or that's very specific to whatever you're looking to do or want guidance on. Look for somebody who's, walked that path before you. Yeah. Yes, purple shirt, sorry.
Hello, great presentation.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask how asking a mentor for learning more about entrepreneurship and how they went through that versus learning a technical skill set project management or product developer at a tech company, how those could be different in a mentorship role, and different recommendations about going about those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's actually a lot of similarities, surprisingly. Obviously, in an entrepreneurship setting, there's a lot more complexity to it, but I would say also the entrepreneurs tend to be extremely busy, and their schedules might be a little more irregular. But I would kind of give the same feedback. It would be be specific about what you're asking for, and if you can, whatever that is, if you're an entrepreneur trying to set something up, there might be, you might be asking questions about how to build community or how to build engagement with your brand or your company. Those are all things you can get feedback on or get advice from somebody who's done that before you. And in some ways it's really similar, like in project management. There are technical skills there, but in my company, at least, a lot of it is knowing who to talk to and knowing how to engage with people, and knowing how to follow up on things. And I would say my skills from running my own company as a yoga teacher are extremely transferable to project management. So for me, there's been a lot of similarities, but obviously different contexts. Not sure if that was helpful.
That was.
Yeah. Oh, yes, right here.
Hello, I'm Romel, and one of the things that I'm struggling with is that I get a lot of good advice, great advice even, but how long does it really, in your experience, how long does it take you to take action on the advice that your mentors give you? And what's a good deadline? If let's say someone gave you an advice, do you take a month or two to finish them, or just a week? Just curious.
I would say that entirely depends on the advice and what the situation is. You know, there's been really easy things that, you know, I can implement almost immediately. And there's been really challenging situations that, you know, interpersonal situations that I've needed advice on that maybe took me a month to action on or more, or, you know, if it's a long-term project, you know, it might take me a couple months to implement changes in processes or things like that. What I would say is, depending on what it is, set that deadline with your mentor or whatever, to say like, hey, you know, this isn't an easy thing for me to action on. Give me a month or two, and I'll come back to you about that. Or like, you know, and in the meanwhile, I have this other question, right? That might be a good way to handle that. But I would say there's no single answer for that. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, lots of.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. My name is Nick. Wanted to ask more about the mentorship program that you've been setting up in your company. Well, first part of the question is, you mentioned that when you had your journey as yoga teacher, you had like senior teachers to come and give you feedback on your lesson. So it's like your mentorship was mentored by another mentor. So someone was like checking how you mentor people. Is it a mechanic that you implement in your company right now? So for example, like a project manager is mentored by senior project manager, but is there someone higher, like a lead project manager, who oversees the mentorship process and says feedback like to the mentor that like, hey, you're pushing your mentee, or you're not giving them enough, or you're like too soft on them, etc., etc.?
That's a really good question. That's not something that we currently have in place. But it is something that, like, you know, I've asked my mentor, you know, like, hey, like, I'm really struggling with the process, this meeting processes. I don't feel like they're the best. Can you come in and just observe this meeting and give me feedback on it? I haven't had anybody observe the observer. So that isn't something that has come up so far. I would say that there are people that we have that get really, really good feedback, because we do a feedback survey at the end of that 6-month mark in our mentorship program, so that we are ensuring that the mentees and the mentors are each giving feedback on each other. So that is something we follow up on, but we don't necessarily have that kind of like observation of the mentor implemented.
Yeah, but you have like a feedback
Yeah.
as an alternative. Yeah. And the second question is, as you've mentioned that mentee should be the driver of the mentorship because, well, it's primarily benefits him. Makes sense. What if I'm, as a mentor, I see my mentee struggling and not asking questions and not following up? Like, I feel the potential, but I don't see its fulfillment. And I'm not in the position to push them because it's their job. How can we mediate that?
That's a good question. I would say that, like, there's a lot of studies that show the mentorship pairing there's more positive outcomes when the mentee is the driver. However, as a mentor, you know, I've had my mentors kind of mentorship relationship. I've had my mentors come to me and be like, hey, you're kind of slacking on this front, you know, and that's, I think if you have that conversation in a really open, honest way, like say, hey, like, I've noticed you're not asking a ton of questions. Like, it would be really awesome if you were more engaged in this way. Those conversations, I would say, as a mentor and mentee pairing, they can be a lot lower stakes than that same conversation if it were coming from a manager, right? Yeah, I mean, yes and no, because the mentee still respects that person and is going for them for advice. Yeah. So if you are a manager who's mentoring somebody, then like that complicates that situation for sure.
Well, actually, can I add something there?
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. So it's like, I don't think that there's ever a wrong thing to say. Like, wouldn't it be really a really great thing as that mentor person just to say, I feel like you're struggling, with something. Like, is it something that we can talk about? Because it's not always necessarily the result or whatever. It's sometimes there's things that are underneath that, and just getting to those might help that person get to that next level. So just saying, hey, like, I feel that you're struggling. Is it something that we can talk about? Really can really open up that relationship.
Back to Amber.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Big round of applause.
One last thing, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're looking for resources, I'm happy to share my mentorship program resources with you. Or if you're ever out in Vancouver or Squamish, feel free to connect, and I will be happy to chat.
Good mountain biking.
Really good. And climbing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. Really appreciate it. I also have to say, I really love the Crash Bandicoot. I loved playing that as a kid. So that was awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you again so much to Zach for co-hosting, and thank you for Michael and Micah for all of the help with the AV and audio and last minute venue. Appreciate it. I want to say a big thank you to Al. I wasn't supposed to be here today, and he offered to step in, so I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone for coming in person. Really appreciate it. And to everyone online, sorry for all the technical issues. Sorry for muting you. Really appreciate your patience as well. It is community announcements, so I'll do this very fast. If you are looking to be a guest or host, talk to Al on our Leaders Innovators Big Ideas podcast. We're always looking for people to share their stories, to host people and share their stories as well. Lunch Without Lunch next week is virtual, so we will be online at Zoom. We will be hearing from Voto app. It should be really awesome. And community onboarding, June 21st. Join us for that. And I think that might be it for me. Is there anyone that has any community announcements?
Just want you guys to wish me luck, because I'm on my way to Panorama to race down that mountain, around the lake, and back up the mountain the other side. So I've said I'm going to do it or die trying. Maybe metaphorically.
Also on June 21st, but later on, we're doing our last Tech Talent Tour event here at Platform. They've all been sold out, over 150 people. I think we have 7 tech companies that will be there. We're going to be talking about career growth and professional development. So I imagine mentorship will be part of that conversation. So hope to see you there.
That's great. Thank you, Zach. So thank you again, everyone, for coming out. Really appreciate it. Thank you again, Jen and Zach and Platform. Really appreciate everything in the presentation. And so now we'll go into some networking. So stick around, get to know someone. And let's chat online. We will go to networking as well. So have fun, have a great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.